Hello and welcome. It is the 14th of May 2017. My name is Derek and welcome. Let's take a look at Ethereum on the weekly time frame, but on multiple time frame analysis, the weekly, the 3-day, the daily, and the hourly chart, the charts from Bittrex. I have an 18 front weighted average of highs as well as of lows as my indicator. And I've circled this area down here at the bottom as that's where it was. It started and then fell down towards this point, but the area around here was 002. So from here to here was a 10x gain. Well, it also meant from here to here was a little over a 10x gain. Really important to understand that these things can have these spectacular gains. And I do think in the future, Ethereum is going to have that happen again. As the one thing that I've heard, at least on JSnip4's channel regarding the webbot, is they're stating later this year or during the hyperinflationary period, which they expect to be later this year or the early stages of such, that Ethereum is going to have some tremendous moves as it breaks into the three-figure range of US dollars, currently trading at around 80 or 90 US dollars in that area. But yeah, a big gain like this. They're comparing it to, I think, the gains sort of like what you would see with Litecoin and Ripple that happened. JSnip4 Ethereum would be a search for that. JSnip4, and then type in after that ETH or Ethereum after that. That should give you information regarding that point there. Now, as far as upward Fibonacci is concerned, I got the high at 340 here. This high occurred after this run up, so I'm looking for a run higher, then a run lower, this run lower to this level in here at 00783. Now the up target needs another 0 before the 84, so 0.08425, which would be roughly somewhere around here. Now I'm going to give you another Fibonacci level later on, which will basically be from this point to this point here, that also coincides with this level. So on any breakout towards this point, that's the area I'd be expecting some level of resistance to come into play. And what I've noticed a lot within these charts, even recently, is after the big declines, you're getting the big moves. And situation in here at the end of 2016 when this bottomed, sideways move, has this first move to go outside above the band with one pause situation, and then the huge run higher. But since that run higher, notice how each candle has reacted. You've had this situation of two follow-through candles. Your first stage of profit taking after a tremendous gain of a 5 or 6x level. And yet you continue with these two sideways periods. And then further gains making new all-time highs with a little bit of profit taking again, thus making a higher low. So the sellers, despite having great gains, haven't done anything to crush the market or even give it a good, decent level of retracement, because the most blind area is that it would come down towards here, maybe at around the 25 mark, which I will also show that Fibonacci for as well. But it hasn't even done that yet either. The momentum still remains towards the upside within this move. For myself, I am transitioning as much as I can into Ethereum because the webbot has been really, really accurate. And so I'm going to give it a shot. And the next thing as well is this has got a good trend. After all, this level of support matches with this resistance and the immediate lift higher. Let's switch this off to a 3-day time frame. A little bit bigger, making it so it's easier to see, at least for small phones as well, and for those watching on a small screen. But again, within the down move, you see the little bit of sideways within the band. And in here, you start to see how things start to strengthen and such. How you make a move above the band, come back to it. You start to leave the band in here. And again, you're just seeing the nice up move that occurs. You're seeing the come back to this band again. You lift off, make a new high, come back again. And if this thing does end up breaking below this point here, there's definitely room to be concerned, but the trend remains higher. And it's very interesting to see how after a big move, it hasn't had that big a plunge lower. It will at some point where it goes down and tests some significant areas or breaks the 18 average band significantly, but that hasn't happened yet. So when you see momentum within this, you got to give it a lot of credibility, where that 80 number that I talk about could easily explode, because it's only a gain of 20 basis points on 60, about 30%. With that being stated, it's the next level, because when we talk about the most likely scenario is maybe a move up to 80 and then maybe a pullback back to within at least this area in here as its next possible move. But if that 80 level isn't resistance, I can't even come up with possible areas to try to guess to where it's going. Maybe profit take little bits on the way as it would be going higher. But we've seen before some large gains. You have it here, you have it here, and after any type of consolidation, especially if this goes in a deep sideways range, say, for the next little while, then when it breaks it on the eventual time, it would have a good chance of having a big move. And as I'm predicting Bitcoin at the 2300 handle, again from JSnip4's channel talking about that, you have Bitcoin at 2300, and one of the easiest ways to get into Bitcoin is into other currencies, and Ethereum is one that I'm looking as one of my favorites as I go into it. So back to the 3-day chart again, breaking down below here. Let's take a look at some key Fibonacci points, and what we're going to do is going to calculate the high in here, which is at 62. And the low and at 007. Don't want to do anything on a James Bond level, but that's what that number rounded off is. So 27.6 works out to a 38.2% down level. So you see weakness within these levels of support. That's, to me, that'd be the sweet area to put a buy order in. And unless you don't mind having Bitcoins holding the fence, I wouldn't put the buy order in yet. I would rather wait for weakness, where if I see this level price action in this area, then I'm going to be like, okay, now I'll put the buy order in for this area here. This also coincides within this resistance, but it's good to know this on the just in case scenario, because when the markets are rolling over, it's really easy to determine what the previous high, what the previous low is, calculate the numbers, and it gives you a good idea that if the price happens to be rolling down, that as soon as you enter into this area, you got a good shot of the market stopping its momentum and at least going sideways or going higher, especially if you're going through some sort of profit-taking stage within the deeper pockets that would give the momentum for this to occur. Let's move this on to a daily chart. And the daily chart, we have the last up move in March, and there's a little bit of its sideways consolidation. So for this spring so far, anything within this range of about 0.0 and a third or 0.033, and the level of even up to 60 in this range here, it's just that. It's neutral. But within the neutrality, we can see in here that this level of support has, or resistance rather, in here has only been support on a flash candle. And that's the name I like to use when a situation when it just comes down and back to its normal trading range. So it really didn't do much trading in this area, which I think in itself is strong again. And on the early stages, you see momentum moving up towards here. We've already established a couple hit high in this area. That breaking through it, now we'll be moving towards that target here again of 80 using this high and this low. And to show you how boring this move is, when you look at this on a short-term time frame, put this on in a hourly chart, that's what you have, at least as of this time. Spent today just doing this sideways action, a pause in the market sentiment, and it's going to be breaking it one side or another. If this was like a gold chart or a silver chart, I would be saying if you see a significant move down here, expect it to go higher as the first move. And if you expect your first move to go up here, expect it to go lower, because it seems they do those false fast moves all the time where if this was, say, silver or gold, they'd go down and then next thing you know, way up, and vice versa on the contrary. But cryptos have been very reliable within the free market, may I add, that when it breaks any type of neutrality base, it's pretty reliable. It's going to do such for what you would expect, meaning you see a nice little breakout period in here. It's got a good chance of being a good long situation. And even if it doesn't work out, it doesn't fail. For example, oh, look at this. It's a good shot here that this thing is breaking out, but you really didn't get any gains, but it hasn't fallen either. Make it any wagers, say, in this spot here of going long as it was breaking out. So I'd be looking towards how this thing breaks out of its range. You also realize that if it does break out and has a move, say, up towards here, it's got a good chance of coming back here. So having buy orders in at this point, not a bad idea if you see it on the short-term time frame, because usually when a market breaks out, it has its first little pop higher, comes back to where it came from, and then if it's a real move, it'll make its nice bullish move and then test any type of key areas and any up targets that it may have on the way higher. All right, so that will conclude this. Again, just downside targets. You can see when you look at this, you got the previous support level and then these levels. Just looking at key levels if this does break down. But overall, I think this has got a very good future right now. And when I do look at the situation, especially within this volume in here, you have the big volume on big moves. That just goes without saying. You had big volume on a key bottom period. That's good to notice. But this consolidation period has been coming on good volume, but nowhere near as strong as this high, but much stronger than previous. To me, this looks like a bullish indication, more of accumulation than it does distribution. So I think the odds does favor that we are probably going to continue with our next leg higher. And I'd be looking again for a target up towards the 80 mark. Have yourself a great day. Take care.